Yeah, welcome. Um, in this session, we are going to be looking at um, visualizations in Power BI. So we're going to try to dive deep into choosing the right visualization and what the visuals in Power BI, what they actually try to communicate. And one of the things that you're going to find common, especially when you work or you get exposed to a lot of business intelligence um deliverables, let me put it that way, is that majority of uh, dashboards and reports that you're going to see, analysis general that you're going to see out there, by brilliant developers, BI developers, at least in my opinion, and data analysts, you're going to find that while they do an incredible job in terms of the way the whole thing is built, the choice of colors, and every other thing like that, you're going to find, and I found this, is that what you're going to find is that majority of the time you're going to see that they are using the wrong chart, to like try to communicate some information. There's this thing where people just like put, like, whip up a chart, as long as it tells that thing in some type of way, like the story that you're trying to communicate, like as long as it tells it in some kind of way, they are fine. And that's not usually the ideal thing. In fact, business intelligence generally is, you bridging the gap between non-technical audience and data. So you want to present the data to them in the best way possible, in the way that maximizes their understanding of what is going on. So today we are just going to be taking a good look. I would like to call it a good look at all of the um, visuals that we have here. Some of them we're going to be looking at them collectively, and we're going to try and understand when to use each one of them. All right, and I'm only going to be just sharing the most common ones so that this video does not get extra lengthy. But I just tell people there is no better way to learn than actually rolling up your sleeves and you know getting to work by yourself. Just experiment with all of these things. So yeah, let's get into it. So first thing I want to do, and you've already seen majority of this from the last class, is we want to like get our data. So we're just going to use Power BI's own sample data set. So I'm going to click on use sample data. I'm going to click on load sample data, and that should come up in a few. Still coming up. Um, still loading. Still loading. And still loading. So let's just give it a few. And while we are waiting for it to come up, I don't know why that is taking long, but Power BI can be like that sometimes. Um, we are going to be looking at these guys, bar chart, all of these other things here. So, like I said, if in this particular video, we are not going to be covering data cleaning, using Power Query at all. You've seen that in the previous video, and I would encourage you to, always maximize like the value that Power BI offers. So Power BI offers you this opportunity to really, really transform your data, and majority of, like, a large percentage of uh business intelligence and data analysis work, just data work generally, is usually data wrangling, making the data prime and ready what you want to use it for. So I'm just going to click on load. If I click on transform, it takes me to Power Query, but I'm going to click on load so that take just loads our data directly into Power BI. So I'm going to click on that, and our data should be here shortly. So we are going to wait for it, and once it's here, we're just going to quickly start going through each of the charts. So it's coming up. Let's wait for it. I think I might need to do apply changes. But let me just wait for it. Okay, it's coming up. Still coming up. And lags like this are kind of like the reason why you find people moving towards tools like Python and stuff. You know, Power BI can imagine we have a larger, like a really, really large data set. So this might be very, very slow, right? Yeah. So let us, yeah, we are here, we are good. So we have all of our data here, and I've actually shown you in the very first video like a walk around for all of the stuff that we have here. So there is the report view that we are on currently, the table view that contains our data, like the representation of our data set. You want to look at your data set without having to go to Power Query. View is where you should go to. Then we have our report, our model view too. All right, so let's get into it. Now, what charts are we going to be playing around with? So, firstly, let us look at bar chart. So, bar chart, column chart, all of these guys here, whatever you want to call it, bar chart, right? So, it is the most common chart, at least in my opinion, and it is actually used to compare data, continuous data across different categories. You can think of it as if you want to look at the distribution of a continuous variable over different categories, over some categorical data, right? So what does that mean? It means you have a continuous variable. Continuous variables are numeric variables that can take on any value. So it could also be discrete. It does not have to be continuous, really. It can be discrete also. But ideally, you want to have a continuous variable in the numeric in the y-axis. So what does that mean? Let's say, and in Power BI, a way of knowing if a variable is numeric is when you see this sigma. When you see this sigma sign, like this summation sign in front of it, so that means that's a numeric variable. So let's say we want to see how profit is distributed across country. Country is a categorical variable. I could show you that here. So country, Germany, Canada, we only have a few of them here. Canada, France, Germany, Mexico. I want to see how profit, this is profit, where's profit? I want to see how profit is distributed across that. So we go here, and the first thing that you want to do is you want to select um, the chart. So all basically like at the primary level, all of these six charts, they basically do the same thing, except for the fact that some of them is like horizontal and some of them is vertical. So I'm just going to take two. So, you know, take this one and let's take this one also. And one important thing in Power BI is if I want to have multiple charts, let's say I want to have multiple charts, if I get at one chart, I have to click outside before clicking on that one. So if I should click on this and I want to get this, let's say this pie chart also, if this is still highlighted, I'm not going to get that. This is just going to get converted to pie chart. So if I should click on pie chart like this, it turns this to pie chart, which is not what I want. I want to actually get another pie chart. So a way to do that is going to be to click outside first, then click on pie chart. Now I'm going to have pie chart, so but that's not what I want to do. Right. So like I said earlier, this is your these are your two bar charts, right? And if I should go for this one on the Y here, I'm going to have country there. Then profit is going to go into the X here, and that is coming up. I don't know why this is lagging terribly today. So we can see this. Let me turn off this visual, this filter for now. So we can see this. Another thing that we can do is I can plot for the second one just for you to see that basically it's the same thing really. Country in X axis, profit in Y axis. So these two charts, they are exactly the same, right? The only difference is this one here is as the categorical variable in the y-axis, while this one has it in the x-axis. Right, they are both bar charts. So, and the same goes for all these other ones. For example, if I should click on this, this is the current chart. If I should switch it to this, it's still like looking the same, but I should switch it to this also. Okay, yeah, this is a little different because it is going to show. Let's say we want to add an extra category, then that is going to be a stacked bar chart where there's just this line here. But then majority of these ones here, they behave exactly the same thing, the same way until you now add something, and that is going to be the situation where you have whether a stacked bar chart or you have a clustered, where is it? A clustered bar chart, right? And right, so what does a bar chart show us in this case? So this bar chart here, these two, they are showing us the distribution of a continuous variable profit. This is a continuous variable profit. How is it uh distributed by country? That is, how is sum of profit distributed by country? And one thing that you must also know is that um bar charts must have some level of aggregation, right? There must be some aggregation happening. For example, currently by default it is sum, so I could change that and say um average, and I'm going to be saying, this is average profit. I could do minimum, and this is the minimum here. Now in the x I mean the negative axis, meaning there are I think in every single country there were losses as the minimum profit made. Then maximum also, these are like maximum and stuff. So you must have some level of um some aggregation that you are doing. So you cannot just do for a single data point, right? That is bar chart. And like I said earlier, we use that to look at the distribution of a continuous variable over some categories. So an example of that would be something like sales by region, revenue by product type, profit by segment, profit by employee, something like that, right? So yeah, and another thing that you could do is you can actually have two type of this. So you can have either a stacked bar chart or a clustered bar chart, and that's when these two things like that's when they are different. For example, I could click on this. Okay, let's check this. So this is, you can see that this one is stacked column chart. So if I should do clustered column chart here, switch this to, excuse me, this is this one. Okay, so I should just use that one. So you're going to see that they look exactly the same. If I should make this smaller and also change that one to maximum, it looks like the same chart, right? Like it is exactly the same chart. But then let's add one extra variable. So we are going to add an extra variable to this legend. So I'm going to add, we are, in this case, we are not just interested in looking at distribution of countries, right, alone, distribution of profit by country. We also want to split it down to, let's say, something like the segment, right? Segment. So we're going to take segment and put it inside legend. So we're going to see that this is now a bit different because we have how many segments? Five segments: channel partners, enterprise, government, mid market, small business, and each one of them we see their performance in each country, right? So further splitted this. So we see that across country, we have the maximum profit on a single order came from government, right, and followed by small business, right. If we should do the same thing for this one here, which is going to be stacked, if I'm right, yeah, stacked, I'm correct. So I'm going to take the same segment and put it in legend, then you see what happens. So instead of putting it side by side, like clustering it actually stacks it on top of each other. So you see how it is stacked. So that is primarily where the difference comes in. So stacked bar charts, clustered bar charts, they are kind of like the same. When all you are looking at is two variables, one variable against another variable, one categorical variable against a continuous variable. But when things like proceeds a little bit higher than that, then you begin to um, see difference between them in the fact that clustered bar chart stacks each of those bar clustered bar chart groups each of those bars within a single category itself. So we have a category for country, United States, and every other thing is in there. But in the case of stacked bar chart, it's going to like put it on top of each other, right? So that is that about bar charts and all. So let's move on to uh and there are a few things that you can do. Let me just point that out. So you can, let me make this smaller. You can actually do a few things like you can come here and I can say, this title here that say max profit, I could come here. Let's firstly switch that to average profit. Good. So average of profit by country and segment, you can literally come to uh this place. Instead of saying average profit, you can say just average profit. So I can double click this and say, instead of saying average profit, so I can say average profit. Then segment is our legend here. So let's say I want to do some things, just change a few things, maybe change this title. I can click on format visual, and I have this whole suite of um tabs that helps me like customize this whole chart, like do some serious high level customization. So if title is what I'm interested in changing, I could come to general and title. I could go average profit in each country. You can see average profit in each country based on, maybe some, you have to do something like that based on segment. So if I should enter that, you see that this has become average profit in each country based on segment. I could totally turn it off if I want. It is gone. I can have it on. I can, italicize it. It has been italicized, bold, change the font if I want. You can really do a lot of nice things here. Another thing that you could do is, could maybe come to visual, and you could do move this legend here. Instead of having it around there, you could maybe put it here, put it below, so you can drop it down and say position. You could do top right and center right, and it takes it to this place. Can you see? And I feel like it's a lot more cleaner. Yeah, you can edit the text here also. In fact, you could go in and edit each of the columns, like each of these bars, like each of these lines. So anyone says all, you can literally go just for like channel partners alone, and channel partners is this color blue. You can specifically change it to any color that you like. Let's say you want channel partners to be, I don't know what you would want to, let's say black. Can you see it has become black? So anything that you want to do, you can literally like very much customize, right? And it is something you want to play around with. You could turn off the x-axis, turn off the y-axis, you could edit it, you could make it bold. So if I click on bold, this x-axis becomes more bold, and you can just like play around with it. And this is something that you're going to be seeing much more in detail when we get to the part where we're actually building a dashboard. And yeah, that's that. Just to show you that you can do some level of customization, but that is not the goal of this, so that the video will not get like incredibly long. So yeah, let's proceed to the next visual. And the next visual that we're going to be looking at, I'm just going to put that on the next page. The next visual that we're going to be looking at is line charts. I do not want this video to be too long, so I'm going to be covering only the absolutely important ones, the common ones that forms like 80% of what you are going to be needing to communicate your insights. So let's go at line chart. Line chart, area chart, basically all of the chart on the second line here. So if I click on line chart, what do we use line chart for? So we use line chart to actually show the distribution of to show uh the the relationship or the movement. Let's call it the movement of a continuous variable, the change of a continuous variable, relative to another variable that is either periodic or continuous. You can think of it this way: you want to look at how profit is moving over time. You want to look at how profit is moving with respect to, let's say, expenditure, and that also over time. So what we use line charts to do is basically to show trend, right? To show trend over time. And you must have seen a lot of line charts before, something from like, if you are interested in the finance market, cryptocurrency, things like that, forex, things like that. And that is what you use line charts for, to show trends, like some pattern of movement with respect to time. So, and yeah, an area chart is just a line chart that has this shaded area below it. So we are going to demonstrate that shortly. Let us see. So I could come here and I could say on my x-axis, let's have date on my x-axis. Then on my y-axis, I'm going to put profit there. And so what you see here is you see this straight line, right? Because then you see we are only accounting for just the year 2013, 2014. And that's because usually by default, there's nothing you want to just take uh rock, like just accept as being final in Power BI. They change things a lot. So sometimes when you try to plot your line chart, you see this data hierarchy thing happening. So what you could do is you could come here if this is not what you want to see. If you want to like really drill down into what is happening, so I could come here, and instead of using data hierarchy, I'm going to switch it to date. And it is going to actually use the date exactly the way it is in the data set, right? So what does that mean? That means we are seeing this now. So we are seeing sum of profit with respect to time, right? And we see that October 2013 we were up. October 2014 we were also up. Let's use this instead of sum, let's use averages. Averages tell better story, right? Okay, so This is December. So October, there are some improvement from September. So October is up. Let's check 2014. October is not quite up anymore. So what we just know is that December, November we are down in 2013. November 2014 we are also down. All right. So you're beginning to see some patterns. Just that this data is not enough for us to see a very long stretch, right? But this still tells us something. So basically, that is what you try to look at with um line chart. So you try to see some movement, some pattern across time. So if we try and take that over to area chart, just to show you that it's just basically the same thing. I could drag and drop this one here, and I could put profit here and switch this from date hierarchy to date, and you see we have the exact same chart, just that the area beneath it is now shaded. And like this, we can actually add legend, where if you're interested in seeing multiple lines, which is not something I will advise. It is better to just use something called slicers to filter, instead of doing something like adding legend. Let's say you want to see by country, then now the whole thing is messed up, right? Because there are a lot of lines. So you probably want to add legend when you have just like two things, just like two, two stuff. Our year here is not in categorical uh mode. I would have, so I don't trust whether it's going to work. Yeah, it did work. So, but we do not have overlapping situation, because, well, 2013 ends around there, then this 2014. But if we have something like two categories, two is fine. That's when you can do legend for the. That's when, in my opinion, you should do legend for this. Anything aside that is just going to make your chart really terrible. Right. So yeah, we are going to look at, so that's basically line chart. There is nothing special to say about that anymore, I don't think so. Yeah, you could have secondary axis also, where you have another thing. Let's say you want to see how sales. So you could put sales in this place, and you have two different axes. Don't forget, let's put this one as um average sales. So we see that what we made, what we make in total sales on average actually follows the same pattern. Please, it does not necessarily mean they are on the same axis. This is the secondary axis, right? And this is the primary one. So, but the thing to actually see here is that the movement for both sales, that is what we made in sales, like the amount that we actually collect from the customers, actually exhibit the same pattern as uh profits, which makes sense. The more we sell, probably almost the more we are going to make sales, right? Make profits, right? So that is the use of secondary axis, right? And secondary axis is different from secondary Y is different from legend. So legend is going to be on the same axis for different categorical variables, while secondary axis is just going to superimpose another um, um, line chart on the existing one, and give it a different what do you call it? A different axis here. So yeah, that's that on line chart, and it is fairly straightforward. Um you can also customize it, and like I said earlier, line charts are used to actually model time series data. All right, and when we get to when you look at the Python video, if you ever get to that part, Python for data analysis, you're going to learn more about time series analysis, where we look at things like trend, seasonality, cyclical variation, irregular variation, which are time series components. Right. So let's move. Let's look at the next one. The next one we're going to be looking at is we're going to be looking. I'm just going to put four of them straight on the page. Four. This video is already getting long. Four. We're going to look at waterfall chart. We're going to look at funnel. We're going to look at scatter chart, and we are going to look at. Should we put pie? Yes, let's put pie chart and donut chart. Pie chart and donut chart, they are essentially the same thing. So right, so I'm just gonna put this here, then drag this all the way down. So let's start with waterfall chart. So what's a waterfall chart? So earlier we looked at bar chart, and we mentioned that bar chart shows us the distribution of a continuous variable over some categorical variable, right? But in the case of um, donut chart, we are not only looking at distribution of continuous variable over some categories, we are also looking at the contribution of each of those categorical variable. So here's what I mean. If we come to this place, if we say country, we put country in categories and we put profit in y-axis. So what we are looking at here is we are looking, let me make it bigger, maybe not country. Let's look at, there is one that took us to the x-axis earlier. I think let's do segment. Let's do segment. Perfect. So segment is better. Now look at what we are seeing here. I'm going to make it bigger so that you can see. So we are seeing sum of profit. We might want to turn that into average. Let's just say average. Perfect. So we see that on on average, we see the contribution of each of these guys, right? Small business on average contributes 41,431.69 to our total average profit, right? So this is like the average profit in like in its totality. The way this is not going to be confusing is just to go ahead and use sum then. So like here now, the total like absolute sum of profit that we made is 16,893. But how many of that was from government? 11,388. Then this one from small business, 4 million. Then channel partners, 1.3, mid market, 660,000. Then the contribution of this guy is actually a loss. It's actually a loss. And that's what took us back to this place here, this final total profit. So whenever we want to look at distribution of some continuous variables, but that is not where we want to end it. We want to actually see the contribution of each of the categorical variables. Like we want to look at, okay, what did this contributed, what did that contributed to the final um uh total. Then we use waterfall chart, and you can see that it looks like a waterfall, right? Great. So the next one that we are going to be looking at, that this is just basically what waterfall is. I don't need to like start showing you that it can be edited and all of that. The next one is scatter chart. So we use scatter chart for two things. We use scatter chart for one, for showing the correlation, the association between two continuous variables. You have two continuous variables, you want to see how they are related. Scatter chart is um your guy. Another thing that you can use it for is clustering. You want to see how uh, you know the relationship between two continuous variables, how it's actually uh, reacts to being exposed to another categorical variable. Let me show you what I mean. So if let's start with the correlation part. So we could have profit, something very straightforward. We could have sales and profit. So let's say we're going to have sales, that's going to be on the x-axis, and we could have profit on the y-axis. And you see this dot here. You might not see it on your own Power BI. Like I said, there's this version and in Power BI where things are just different. So if you have this dot on your own and you've like put these two things. So it means Power BI is already summarizing your x-axis for you. So you probably don't want to do that. So what you want to do is click on this arrow and say don't summarize. Then you can also say don't summarize profit. Just make everything cool. Perfect. So um this is our what do you call it? Profit and sales. So we see that between profit and sales, right, there is this uh positive correlation in a way. From if you look, this place is a little bit dense, so there is a lot of data points here, but still you're going to see that the line is kind of like going up like this. And if you also want to focus on this area that looks like outlier, I'm not really saying they're outliers, but it looks like it, you're also going to see that there is this kind of like straight relationship where as profit goes up, sales also follows it and goes up. So it looks like some positive correlation here. We've seen that. So for every unit increase in profit, there's some corresponding increase in sales and vice versa. Now, that is one part of it. Looking at how two continuous variables, how they move together. Another thing that you could look at is, well, if I should, is this true for every single kind of data that I have, like every single kind of observation in my data set. For example, is this true? This relationship, is it true for this relationship that we see where as one is going up, one is going up, and all of these stuff like that? Is it actually true for every category? Like if I should put in a categorical variable, do I expect a kind of behavior? For example, if we take segment uh, that we saw earlier. And the reason why that is important is, for example, if we look back at the waterfall chart that we did earlier, we saw that enterprise is loss. And from this chart, if this is the only thing that we are looking at and we are not looking at some cluster behavior, then you might just be tricked to into the you can be tricked into the trap of thinking, well, even if the order is going to an enterprise, a segment of enterprise, which we've seen from the waterfall chart, that is usually a loss that comes from them. You might want to be tricked into saying, well, all we have to do is increase the sales and the profit will follow. Well, that might not be true. And let's find that out. So we're going to say segment, we'll drag that into legend. Now look at it here. You see that now we have some cluster behavior and enterprise here, which is this blue line. It does not exhibit this upward movement that we are seeing for everybody. In fact, it looks like it wants to be going down. It looks like it wants to be going down. So, and you see that segment is not even showing. There is no blue line showing at the top here or at the top around there. So, meaning that that relationship that you saw earlier of the more the sales, the more the profit, it does not apply to enterprise, to the segment of enterprise. So, that is that is the thing. Uh, and this is close. This shows us some behavior of each of the categorical variables with respect to this relationship that we are looking at here. So we see that channel partners, the higher the better, but usually just small orders, right? Small profit, small sales. Then we see that government is huge, huge profit, huge sales. Small business also relatively huge business and huge sales. And you see that enterprise are just small. So that is the clustering part. So you use um scatter chart for two things: correlation and also clustering, like to measure cluster behavior. And another thing is, okay, I'm going to do that on the next page so that we do not dissuade from the flow. So I'm going to come here, right? So let's look at the next chart, and the next chart is going to be um, funnel. And what do we use funnel for? And I'm going to be quick with this. I do not want this video to be too long. What do we use funnel for? We use funnel to also do almost the same thing that we do with a bar chart again, but there's just a little like addition to it. And funnel shows us also the distribution of some continuous variable over categories. But now, in this case, we actually see that distribution relative to each of the preceding category. What does that mean? What it means is that imagine you have this thing where you want to look at, you just do not only want to see each chart, each bars like a bar chart. You want to see, okay, how much of change exists in a chart, in a bar, relative to the bar before it or relative to the bar in front of it. That is what funnel does for us. And that is not something you can find when you use it's not something that you can find when you use bar chart, because in bar chart you don't see that like difference. And when you want to show like stages in a process, let's say a sales pipeline, a recruitment funnel, a marketing funnel where there is leads turns into paying customers turns into VIP, stuff like that. Great. So you really cannot model that kind of thing, that kind of change with a bar chart, right? So if you come to um where is that? If you come to, I just want to show you this in a bar chart. So if you come to this place, and although we don't have the exact column to show this, but I'm still going to show it to you. So if we come to this place and we put country in category and we put profit in values. Now what you're going to see is you're going to see this again. I must reiterate this, that this relationship that we are looking at here is not the best use case for funnel, right? Because there's no like a kind of like stages in this, like each countries are independent of each other, right? So it does not make this the perfect example, but I'm just still going to explain this in a way. So now it says France is 3.78 million, right? And that is the first. So our total profit in Germany is just 3.6 million, which is 97% of the profit in France. So think about it this way. There is, let's say this is a lead kind of thing. So this is like you have a landing page, and these are like all of the leads that you got, like all of the people that landed on the page. Let's say they are like 3.78 million. Then after that, you're able to convert some people to customers, paying customers. Now it's now saying 97.34%. It's now saying, sorry, 3.6 million paying customers are what you have now, which is 97.3% of everybody that landed on the page. Do you understand? So it's prime for actually seeing some funnel kind of relationship, right? So you can move to the next line and you say, okay, now you now have Canada. So let's say Canada is now recurring customers, like customers they are not just paying alone, they are coming over and over. So it's now saying that is 3.5 million, which is 93.3% of everyone that landed on the page, 93.3% of first, and just 95% of the paying customers. Then like that. So what happens is this gives us like a kind of a funnel thing. And when you see people just put data point like the one that we are showing here on a funnel, you just know that it actually does not show really that they understand what funnels does, right? So if you don't have that kind of relationship, especially when you have mutually exclusive categories like this, when they are completely independent, you really do not, in my opinion, and I feel like generally you really should not put it on funnel. Batch out will sort you out in that case. And if you do have something where the whole thing is overlapping, something like a sales pipeline, marketing funnel, things like that, then funnel is your guy. So next one we are going to look at is pie chart and donut chart. They are exactly the same thing, and we use it to actually show how continuous variables distributed across a category, just like bar chart. But then in this case, instead of bars, we have all of these uh, sectors as our as each of the categories. So we could go country in legend and profit in values. And if you do that, you have this, and it's almost difficult to see. And that's why, there's a lot of this campaign, like to put it that way, there's this campaign against pie chart. If you do not have, and it is not really a campaign against pie chart, it is an idea is subscribed to also. If you do not have clear um categories, like clear difference between your categories, you really should not be using pie chart, because it is now going to be difficult to try and understand what you are trying to say. So, for example, if someone should have a glance at this, it is really difficult for them to know quickly what the difference is. And if you had changed that to bar chart, the difference is going to be much more cleaner. And like I said earlier, pie chart and donut chart, they are exactly the same thing, like exactly the same chart. In fact, you can turn this donut chart to a pie chart. So you can just go into, take slices, I guess. Then you can come into spacing and inner radius to 0, and it changes it to pie chart. So they are the same thing essentially. Yeah, so that's all of these guys. Pie chart, all of these line scatter chart, funnel, and donut, and this waterfall chart. So to wrap up the video, like I said earlier, you need to actually come in here, dive in yourself, and check it out. We're going to be looking at uh, let me come back to this page and show you how slicers work. So let me just click here. So slicers are not charts themselves. We use them to control that chart. So if I should take this slicer here and put country on it like this, if I click on France, for example, look at what happens to the other charts. They've changed. Now the information on all the other charts are just the ones from France. If I should switch it to Germany, I have just information from Germany. If I should switch it to Canada, I have information from Canada. So that's what slicers do. Now, to actually finally wrap up the video, let's look at gauge. Other things you can figure out. Tree map, you probably should not use it at all. It is a terrible way of displaying charts. I don't like it. But if you can find a good use case for it, it's fine. This guy displays distribution of continuous variables over categoricals as boxes, like as squares. And in my experience, it's really very difficult to actually get the difference in uh, those particular squares. So you probably want to be careful. Maps are easy. You just need to like have your internet on when you want to use map, and it's easy for you to just put your data on it, and you're going to be able to find uh that. Then I guess this is new Azure map. You can try it out. So the ones I'm going to be just be looking at is, I've added gauge. I'm going to add card, and I'm going to add matrix and table, and those are like things that we're going to be covering: matrix and table. Right, great. So what's gauge? Gauge is kind of like the exact thing that you see in your speedometer. So gauge shows us the progress towards a goal, like we are moving towards a goal. How are we moving towards that goal? For example, I could have sales, I could have profit like this, drag it into value. So it's saying our current profit is 16.89 million. Now, if you do not explicitly put a value here, I don't want to do that right now because we haven't learned about DAX, data analysis expression, which is our next class, DAX. If you know how to write DAX, you can actually put a DAX here, right? So, and that is going to be the or you could do something like maximum value. You could come to sales and put maximum value there. So you are saying that this is, although not good, you are saying that your maximum value, the maximum value that you want to make in profit is like your target, right? Your absolute target where everything is fine is 118.73 million. But another thing that you could do is you could actually come to this place to have a target, like an actual target, like where you are going to. So what I'm going to do, I can move some of sales to target, and then I can move gross sales to maximum. Yeah, great. So what does that mean? It says the absolute area, like the final where everything is fine, is 127.93 million. But there's this targets that we are heading to currently, like this place I want to get to, and that place is 118.73 million, right? So that is how gauge works. So it just shows us like how we are progressing towards a goal, right? So that's what gauge is. The next one is card. Let me show you card. So what we use card for is to display a KPI, right? A metrics, like a single value. Anytime you want to create this, you want to display a single value, card is your guy. So I could come here and it says sum of profit is 16.89 million. I could change it to anything minimum, you know, maximum, anything, card. Then table and matrix. So table is pretty much straightforward. So I could have a table, and I have country, and in country I'm going to have profit. So we have, profit by, drag this, that can be a bit tricky. Yeah. So I can have profit by each country just as a table. You can edit this, make it bigger and all of that. But sometimes you want to go multidimensional, and that is matrix. You want to go row total, column total. So how does that work? Well, that works with that's where you need the matrix. So I could go rows of country, columns of maybe year. Let's see, maybe year. So I'm going to go into data hierarchy and get year. I don't want something too large. Then I can now have profit as the value. So I can actually make this bigger. So I see in each country, these are these are the yearly sum of profits that we are making in each country. So we have some row total like this, row one, row two, these are the total, and we also have some column total, column one, column two. So that is matrix for you. And yeah, so majority of the other charts are here. Some of them are new, some of them are not. So you can play around with them or check Power BI's own official documentation on their webpage to know how to choose the right chart. That is extremely important. Um, yeah. So that is that on how to choose a right visualization. I am going to see you in the next one. Thank you for tuning in.